joining us for the FreeMind podcast. We are very proud to have Steve Groff here of Cedar Meadow Farms, Cover Crop Coaching, and SteveGroff.com. Steve is a well-versed, long lineage in the farming and regenerative agriculture world. Thanks, Steve, for joining us today. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Nate. Pleasure to talk to you.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate you taking the time, and we want to learn a lot more about Steve Groff and about regenerative farming and this new certifications that are coming and some new ways that we can teach consumers about what it is that they're putting in their body. So I want to kind of jump right into kind of the story of Steve. So tell us, 18-year-old Steve Groff, kind of looking at the world. Is this where you saw yourself going?
Well, let's start a little before 18. I'm
All right.
a third-generation farmer. My grandparents bought the place I live on here in 1935. My dad bought the neighboring farm in 1967. That's where I grew up. They've been farmed together, both those farms, ever since. When I was 18 years old, graduated from high school, I never had a desire to go to college, so I never did. But when people ask me, like after they hear me speak, they'll say, well, where did you graduate from? I'm like, well, I never did graduate from college because I'm still in it. I'm still learning. So when I was 18, basically, I was ready to farm. And my dad basically gave me, I guess you would say, some of the responsibilities at that time. And that's actually when I traced back my regenerative roots. And we can talk about that. But so I did graduate from high school and went right to the farm.
Excellent. So when you were on the farm there, were you taking these same tactics that you're now having the certification for? Was that always part of your structure, and now it's just kind of more of a public certification type?
No, just to give a little context more here, I graduated in 1982, so you can figure out my age. Graduated from high school, that is. So it's been 41 years, this journey. And it all started because I had ditches in my sloping fields from when it rained, heavily, that the water washed ditches down through my fields, and I couldn't cross those ditches with my tractor, my equipment, to harvest my crops. I had to close them first. And at the time I thought that's just, an extra thing. It's just not, it's just an extra thing to do. I didn't have any really clue about soil health. I could really say I could care less about water quality at that point. I didn't know there was a problem. But what I realized, and I started a practice called no-till, which is short for no tillage. I started that in 1982. That today, that has led me on a journey to literally grow food as medicine. And there's a lot we can unpack there, and I wrote a book about that. Maybe we can talk about that later. But so that's how it all got started back in 1982, all because I had a problem on my farm of ditches. And because I solved that led on this long journey that continues today.
Excellent. Well, yes, great intro and transition into the book there. Without giving anything away as far as the spoilers of the book, kind of what can people look forward to in your book? Where can they access it, and so forth?
The book is called The Future-Proof Farm, subtitle Changing Mindsets in a Changing World. It's not a how-to-farm book. It doesn't give you the specifics of that. It's rather more of our mindsets, the way we think about our approach of growing food. The book is written for farmers, but also for consumers. And thirdly, for those who are in the supply chain. So kind of everybody involved in agriculture, I want to give them a perspective that this is where agriculture is headed, the regenerative movement, the regenerative agriculture movement, which really focuses on regenerating the soil, making it better, not just sustaining it, but regenerating it, making it better. So I talk a lot about my experiences of travel. I've spoken in 12 different countries all over the US and Canada, and just sharing how farmers have made this transition into regenerative agriculture. Now, I do explain what that means in the book, but you can get the book at SteveGroff.com, SteveGroff.com. And, if you're interested, again, consumers, farmers, supply chain, all those people will find it interesting. It's an easy read. I've got a lot of compliments on that it's a nice, smooth read. So check it out.
Perfect. Excellent. It's good for the coffee table and more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, yeah. So making it better in regenerative farming, The other day we talked with, we actually had a podcast with a CEO of Sage Bistro, which is a chain of vegan bistro restaurants out in Los Angeles. And she strategically purchases from regenerative farmers in California for her supplies and things like that. So it was an interesting story there from the retailer side of things. And now actually she still has all those chains, and she's down in Texas opening. She has a farm, 300 acres down there she's doing called Sovereignty Farm. And they're actually going to be converting it over. They're growing hops there now regeneratively, and then selling them to themselves as well as their own brewery in California, and then opening another brewery down in Texas. So definitely enjoying seeing this movement as far as the criteria goes. And I know you've been preaching for a long time, but I think that one of the things is that a lot of people have to have that groundwork laid for them before they can jump in. And I think that's a compliment to you and many others in your space that are kind of paving the way for showing people you don't have to create it from scratch. Here's how you do it, and kind of, rather than the stories being heard from laying it out there and stuff like that. So is that something you feel like pretty
Yeah. Yeah, it's a simple concept, but very complex to be able to do effectively. Because we as farmers, I'm going to speak as a farmer now, we have done things, some is by tradition and some things it's like tried and true and proven over the decades. My grandpa did it this way. My dad did it this way. We that's a common theme in agricultural settings. But there are, obviously, as we know, there's, as in many things in life, there are some ways now that are better. And I like to kind of couple it together. It's better for the people and the planet, because if we want to grow healthy food, we're going to have a healthy planet. And the linkage between those two, you could say, well, that's very, very far apart. No, it's actually not. It's very closely related. Now, we want to mimic nature as much as possible. And, people can hear this and say, well, yeah, that's a good idea, Steve. Well, I'm going to challenge you. If you really want to do that, then you need to go out and forage for berries and nuts. Well, I'm not really interested in that. But how can we as farmers grow food in a way that does mimic the principles of nature in order to supply myself, my friends, and everyone else with food to eat? So that's really what the premise of this whole regenerative agriculture movement is what lessons can we learn from nature and apply them now with what we know? Someone has said, we know more about the Milky Way and beyond than we do the 6 inches of soil underneath our feet. And that's kind of sobering. But when you start learning what goes on in the soil at a microbial level, at a level that we can only see some things at, thousands of times magnified in our microscope, when we start to understand that, then we can better understand how the soil is designed to function, and then we can learn how to manage it. See, there hasn't been a lot of research on 6 inches below our feet because we have all these inputs that we can buy, and it makes it easy, and there's such a parallel, and we might want to get into this, Nate, between big ag and big pharma. And I probably just right now just open up a big can of worms. But what happens? What's the first thing you do when you have a headache? Well, you reach for a pill. So often people are going after the easy fix. I'm not against pills, but we've relied on that too much when we should be thinking about what is the food that I'm eating that I could maybe avoid chronic diseases that are so prevalent today. That Americans spend, on average, as much on healthcare as they do on food. And that's when you add everything in, all the prescriptions and everything, it's about $5,000 a year. So something's wrong with that picture in my mind. So this is where we have to grow food in a way that is more nutritious, more nutrient dense. So we can talk about the environment all day. And that's the fun thing that people like to talk about. But I will tell you, if we grow food that is nutrient dense, the environment aspect will take care of itself. Because in order to protect the soil from degrading or eroding, like I had to do, 41 years ago when I started it, if we grow it to protect that. Oh, by the way, the bonus is we have healthier food. Not only healthier food, but in my case, I grow CBD hemp, And we're working with locally here with Penn State College of Medicine and evaluating the just the efficacy of the CBD grown on regenerative soils, and we are seeing a difference. Now it's too early to make claims and everything. There's clinical trials are forthcoming, but we're seeing a difference. Oh, that's a clue. How can I manage to actually make even medicine? So the whole moniker food as medicine, there's something behind that, and that's what I'm trying to do.
No, that's phenomenal. And do you when you look at this with this type of thing, are you all you're very ingrained into the actual growth and the overall societal piece? You're not just one guy that's a cog in the machine. I mean, you're on the forefront of leading and speaking. Yeah. You're a very public figure in this aspect.
Yeah, and it's just not something I actually aspired to do. I didn't plan that I'm going to do everything I'm doing. It just happened. I do enjoy helping people. And I think as I evaluate what, gets me up in the morning, so to speak, helping people and then helping the planet. I mean, I just like those two words. They do go hand in hand. And so, I've been collaborating with, partnering with, some of the leaders in these various aspects of field, and food is nutrition, food is medicine. And so, I don't know it all. I'm still learning. I got a lot to learn. And by the way, I've made a lot of mistakes along the journey. But just try not to make them too big is my goal. Anyway, so to me, it's important to network with people who are smarter than me in the various aspects of this whole topic we're talking about. So I am very open to collaborating with others. I mean, literally here at my farm in the next half hour, I have some people coming here to talk about a partnership collaborative effort here in the state of Pennsylvania that can be very significant in the whole aspect of growing hemp. So these are the things that I enjoy doing and that I really have found to be helpful for me as a person, for me as a business. And then again, the result is helping other people live a healthier life.
When you speak to your family about kind of the evolution of the farm and let's call it the family business as it is, a lot of farmers, you farmer, you grow up in a farm, you've always been part of it. It's been ingrained in your life. Mm-hmm. You took it to kind of another level. You know what I mean? It wasn't just growing the farm, servicing Whole Foods, things like that with the products and produce and things like that. You've gone to an advancement of saying, okay, here's new things that are going on. Here's new ways I can also use my farm. Granted, regenerative agriculture, the way you just described it is that, and am I off by saying essentially you're doing Mother Nature's work with a human touch?
Oh, that's a great way. I never heard that before, but
you just helped me understand it so much better by really saying, because and then it sounds silly by me saying the groundwork and the paving the way when really it's always been there.
Well, yeah, the puns are
all just taking credit for something that's already been there. Yeah. In typical American fashion, we've labeled it, certified it, and now it's official. So, but excellent. Yeah. I like that. Food as medicine is something that I think that everyone struggles with. And I think whether it's a struggle because of your financial positioning in life and you're forced to eat a certain way, or the economy and the retail world, forces you financially out of that path. Yeah. I think that a lot of people struggle with finding the right way to go. And I think that there's a fascination with you branching out, let's say, of staying the same path of this is what I did, this is what my father did, and this is what we're going to do, and put our heads down and just produce. Mm-hmm. You took that to another level by producing and helping, and kind of what was the pivotal point in your life when you decided to not just produce and be a farmer like everybody else and kind of set yourself, I don't want to say up, but you really set yourself apart from everybody and been like you said, you like helping people. So that makes sense. It was something innate in you to help grow a greater community and advance it.
Yeah, the answer to that for me was in the mid-'90s when I had been very, very, very much committed to the concept of no tillage, not tilling. And then the advent of on my farm, I had always dabbled in cover crops, crops that cover the soil over the winter. And I questioned, do these cover crops literally pay? Do they pay for themselves? Because we're running a farm. It's a business. They cost money. It takes time. And so I was approached by the University of Maryland soil scientist, Dr. Ray Weil. He said, would you like to do some long-term studies on your farm, some on-farm research about the value of cover crops? And I was like, wow, yeah, sure. So we did that. And 4 years into that, in 1999, we had a drought year. And where I had used these cover crops the previous 4 years, we had about a 25% increase yield on my corn on a dry year. So I realized that I had done something to the soil that impacted a stressful a season. And, that answered the question for me. Even today here, farmers who have not yet deployed some of these practices, they ask the same question, do cover crops pay? And it's a little easier to answer now because there is a shift. There's a momentum that a lot of farmers are using them worldwide. So it's not just a little fad that Steve Groff kind of fanned the flame on. It's nationwide. It's worldwide. So the whole thing for me that really, when I saw that, I thought, okay, now how am I going to maximize their use? And at first I was just thinking about yields, crop yields. My soil is more resilient. Well, then we started realizing, well, actually, this is also helping to increase the biological life within the soil. And that in turn helps to reduce fertility needs. And I won't go into all the details of that, but I'll just simply say, you look at a woods, an undisturbed area, things grow. Things look pretty vibrant and green. I mean, right now we're in the first week of June. Everything's green here in Pennsylvania. How does that work? Well, that's just the way the soil and the microbes and everything was designed to function. How, again, I'm going to repeat, can we take that functionality and put it and grow food with it? So that's what I continue to learn today. And that's, kind of the journey that I'm on. And there's all kinds of technical things we're doing, and we're doing things down on a molecular level. We're doing research in the DNA of the microbes. And I kid you not, I'm talking to a company about doing that.
Wow.
And so this is kind of like the cutting edge right now, you might say, in regenerative agriculture is really, it's the biological life in the soil that we're looking to. And then guess what? We can reduce our inputs. We can reduce the things that we used to use. And again, I'm not an absolutist in like, I don't want to get any inputs on my farm. Maybe if I can get to that point someday, great. I hope I can. But at this point, we're reducing our inputs and growing a healthier food. And there's a correlation to that. So we're going to see how far we can go.
Excellent. And what's the point when you decided to bring CBD into the portfolio of growth?
So I first heard about growing industrial hemp in 1999, 24 years ago, and I was intrigued with it. But we were naive and we thought we could change the laws back then. But of course, we were way ahead of our time. And in 2017, I had someone come in here from Colorado, a friend of mine, and said, "Oh, you need to grow CBD for me, when it becomes legal." I'm like, "What's that?" I'd never heard of CBD before, and he told me. And I said, "Okay, whatever." Then when it became legal in 2019, I was ready. I mean, I'd done the preparation and so forth. So I planted CBD, grew it, got it, my own brand, cedarmeadow.farm. And here we are today. Now I'm also growing fiber hemp as well. I actually have 50 acres of that in the ground right now. And we're continuing to grow CBD, but I really love the plant. The plant has so much to offer. I like to say, if God made any plant for humans, hemp is probably the best one. There's so many uses that we can use. And we've had 80 years where we couldn't really study it or research it because it was banned because of this little tiny marijuana issue. But now, we're kind of moving beyond that. And we see so many uses of this plant. It fits right into what I'm doing. It's good for the soil. It's good for humans. So here I am. It's a perfect thing for me to grow.
No, it's a perfect fit in the portfolio, and this cohesiveness is uncanny, and it makes a lot more sense now to hear that you've been eyeing it up since 1999. That really makes a lot more sense.
I literally have the brochure from that meeting, so if anyone wants to see it, I can show it to you.
I tell people as well, like I was very much into the hemp aspect and years ago before all this, and I had the books and everything like that. I said, I'll show you my Amazon receipts. I swear. I was never interested in the marijuana. And it's going to lead me into my next question is if you could describe from a farming standpoint, because this is something a lot of us, we all know whether they're ingestible edibles or they're smokables or they're topical creams, but not many people realize the fiber part you just talked about.
Yeah.
So kind of speak about the differences of the hemp plants when one's purpose is as an ingestible and one as a industrial use.
Yeah, so I like to use a corn analogy since most people are familiar with popcorn, sweet corn, field corn. Popcorn you eat at the movie theater, sweet corn you eat in the summer day, field corn is what you feed the cattle. It's all corn. So when you look at, in this context, I should say cannabis, the more the Latin name for the plant, hemp, and the word hemp has different meanings depending who you ask, but let's say cannabis, you'll have certain selections that have been selected over hundreds of years for the plant to produce more fiber that can make clothing out of and textiles and so forth. Certain aspects of the plant for medicinal uses like, we'll say, CBD. And also, the plant has also been selected for high THC levels, the psychiatric psycho effects that THC gives. So just like you have differences of corn, we have differences in hemp. The problem, what happened in 1937 is, I'm going to say it this way, they used marijuana to demonize the whole plant because it would be my opinion now, in retrospect, that the big companies, big pharma, even big ag, felt threatened by this plant, and they used the marijuana sliver of it to ban the whole plant. So that's probably a whole nother podcast. We could talk about that. But we lost the use of this plant for 80 years. It was illegal, and it's just so unfortunate. So yes, it's been abused, but anything can be abused. And so, as I look into the benefits of this plant, I mean, there's literally thousands of uses of it in very good ways. I mean, we didn't even talk about sequestering carbon. That's another thing it does good on, and actually permanently stores carbon when you take hemp and put it in as insulation for houses and stuff. There's so many things that can be done with hemp. So that's why it's such a great plant.
Yeah, that's from the fiber aspect too. Like a lot of when I was doing the research a few years back, not people realizing that they actually make concrete out of hemp. There's concrete, and
mix it in.
Yep. Back in the 30s, we were using it making rope and holding boats, ships, and petroleum. I mean, it was a substitute for fuel, and it was an energy source.
Yeah, and currently, the United States imports 150,000 tons of hemp from other countries. It's still, until we build up our own infrastructure, why can't we grow it here? Well, we can, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's just, again, an amazing plant with a lot of uses. I think the time is right because there's a more openness to, I'll just say, natural things, clothing, all kinds of things. And you can mix it with cotton. It's all the other thing too, you had mentioned in the 30s. Well, Henry Ford literally built a Model T made out of hemp until it was banned.
Yep.
Today, BMW and Ford is using hemp in the inner door panels and so forth in the interiors of certain cars. So we're already there. A lot of people don't even know that. And basically anything that's plastic, petroleum based, you can infuse hemp. The herd of the hemp, the inside part of the stalk, can be infused in there to make it, we'll just say, more earth friendly. Yep. And even racing, even in Formula One racing, they're using some hemp parts now because the properties of it are very light and very strong. So all of a sudden, you have tremendous opportunities out there. We can grow this crop. It can be good for the farmers. It's another crop to grow, and it's good for the environment. Takes in a lot of carbon. So, here we are, just on the threshold, I think, of a huge industry in the decades to come.
I think so as well. And years ago, I had a t-shirt business, and we had a line of hemp clothing and stuff, but it wasn't to where it is now. I've recently bought some hemp clothing, and the advancements of that fabric has gone so much too. Like years ago, it was kind of a little soft, but it was a little rough around and stuff like that. Now I have some hemp clothing that's a whole different ball game. That's only been a few years. Yeah. I think that I've got a few more minutes here, about 5 more minutes, if that's okay with you. I'm really glad that you talked about the industrial uses of hemp and everything like that as well. And kind of backing up to, let's talk a little bit in the last few minutes about the detachment of, I want to detach Delta 8, Delta 10, all that stuff from the products you make. Recently, locally, we had a big bust here the other week, and you look at all the products that were in those photos and stuff, and it's like it's just that cartoon kidifying of the CBD world. And I want to kind of close out on that piece as far as the separation of the two. And I have my own experiences with carrying those portfolios, and I know you do as well. And I want to follow your lead in the sense that you defiantly do not carry certain products for certain reasons, and kind of elaborate on that, given locally here and nationally the growth in counterfeit foods and stuff like that, and THC infused edibles and things like that being sold over the counter to anyone that wants to buy them, basically.
Yeah, so THC, we're all familiar with that, commonly called marijuana, gives you a high when you use it. So when the law was passed in 2019, there was essentially discovered a loophole that that we could. I mean, that law allowed us to grow the CBD products, and anything that's below 0.3%. Below that is not considered marijuana, and anything over 0.3 is considered marijuana. And just for reference, those who want to use marijuana, they would like something at 15% or higher. So 0.3% is a very, very low bar. So, so just to give that in context, there was some legal loophole that allowed, and I'm not going to get into the details here, but allowed a process to put Delta 8 or Delta 10 into involving with CBD products, and it actually depends who you talk to, gave you a similar high or not quite as much of a high as typical marijuana. The problem was there was zero regulation on it, and some, I think, unscrupulous companies actually was marketing that in vape shops and in stores and convenience stores that literally a 10-year-old could buy. Mm-hmm. Not only were they making it available to buy, they were packaging it to make it look like candy. And doing knockoffs like Rice Krispies and Kellogg's and different things. They did knockoffs like that looked like those brands. So a kid could go in the store and they could buy a couple packs, and if they consumed some of that, they were on the floor vomiting or going to the hospital. And a couple of those incidences have happened. So that is to me is being totally irresponsible. Anyone in marketing should never have done that. So for me personally, our CBD brand, cedarmeadow.farm, we have a hard line. We're just on the CBD side of things. And so, because I am all about health and wellness and trying to help people use these products in a way that will help them, generally help them. So the whole Delta 8, which is kind of the term we use to, that whole category there is about a dozen states who have banned it now. Here in Pennsylvania, and I didn't even know this was possible, but here locally, Lancaster County has now banned it where I live. And they actually went in and basically seized products in stores, just under $300,000 worth here a couple weeks ago. And then I, as a hemp grower, got a certified letter that basically said, that I can't grow it or do it. Or use it. So they really came down hard on it. And honestly, I feel it's a good thing because it was being irresponsible. And it kind of causes us to backtrack and say, no, we're not that. We're not that. You don't have to worry about our CBD side. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Nate, because I know you're well versed in that, but That's my assessment of the situation.
No, and that's why I wanted to close with this. I wanted to let people know and really see that there are companies that are not fully in on everything. And there's some that are making very principled statements, very principled decisions, and very strategic decisions when it comes to that for the safety and health and well-being. And I think for you, that's just indicative of your entire mantra, and everything that you do is to help people to know that nothing that you're going to touch is going to bring something negative to somebody.
Correct.
Steve, I appreciate you taking time today. We are so privileged, and this isn't just blowing smoke at all. We are privileged to have you locally here I'm privileged to be able to work with you, and I want to have multiple sessions with you on these, because I think there's some that we're planning. I think with possibly some doctors and a panel up and down the road, and possibly another one where I might bring you and Molly together and talk about the buying side of retail and the agricultural side, and we may do a session specifically on supply chain management and different things like that. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this over the next few months. And thanks again for your time today, and keep fighting the good fight, because we all appreciate what you're doing out there.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. Happy to help any way I can, and appreciate those who are listening, your interest here. Regenerative agriculture is definitely, the future. Hemp is definitely the future. It's going to increase in all those aspects. So thanks again, Nate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. You enjoy the rest of your day.
All right.
Take care.